On a night that would mark history, the sky was torn by the roar of war machines. Hundreds of drones and missiles, like enraged swarms, crossed the darkness towards Israel. The world watched, breath held, as an event unfolded that seemed like another dark chapter of humanity. But at that moment, something greater was at stake, an ancient prophecy that spoke of times of tribulation and the return of a king. The tension was palpable, the streets fell silent as the Israeli defense systems worked tirelessly. One after another, the missiles were intercepted, falling like shooting stars that did not fulfill their fatal destiny. And as the people of Israel watched the sky, many wondered, could this be the prelude to the war of Gog and Magog, announced millennia ago? In this video, we will unravel together the mysteries behind these events. It's not just a matter of geopolitical conflicts, it's the tapestry of human history being woven before our eyes. And you, my dear viewer, will have the keys to understand not only what is happening but what it may mean for the future of us all. Iran's response to an alleged Israeli attack on its consulate in Damascus triggered an unprecedented military response. But beyond the headlines and political analysis, there is a deeper narrative intertwined with faith, destiny, and the eternal quest for peace. Together, we will explore these layers, seeking answers and understanding. And as we await the next moves on the political chessboard, one thing is certain: the decisions made in the corridors of power in Israel can alter the course of history. This is not the end of our journey, it is just the beginning. And I invite you to continue with us, for history still has many pages to be written. In ancient times, a vision was granted to the prophet Ezekiel, a vision that would echo through the centuries. He saw nations led by an enigmatic Gog, from the land of Magog, uniting in an assault against Israel. This alliance included ancient Persia, now known as Iran, and other distant lands, all driven by the belief that Israel was a vulnerable land, a scattered people who had returned to their sacred hills. Since 1948, when the State of Israel was established, the nation has faced countless challenges, resisting attacks from neighbors and extremists. But a direct attack from Iran? That was unprecedented. Ezekiel predicted that when Gog marched upon Israel, a divine fury would be unleashed: earthquakes, panic, disease, and a rain of sulfur. A demonstration that the Lord defends Israel. The prophecy continues to describe the tragic end of Gog and his allies, a defeat so overwhelming that even the birds and wild animals would be summoned to a macabre feast. The abandoned weapons would serve the people of Israel for 7 years, and the bodies of the fallen would be buried in a valley, purifying the land. After 7 months of cleaning, a spiritual restoration would follow, and everyone would recognize the Lord as the God of Israel. But what does a prophecy from 2,600 years ago mean for us today? For the first time, Iran, ancient Persia, attacked Israel directly. If Israel responds, Iran's allies may join the fight, and some believe this could be the beginning of the prophesied war. If Ezekiel's words are coming true, we could be on the brink of a conflict of biblical proportions. Jesus warned us in Matthew 24 about wars and rumors of wars, but assured us that it would not yet be the end. Nations will rise against nations, kingdoms against kingdoms, but Israel, even when attacked, will be honored by God. And what should we do? Surrender our lives to Jesus, for the future is uncertain. The end of times may not be near, but no one knows what tomorrow holds. And as for Revelation chapter 20, it mentions Gog and Magog, but this vision of the Apostle John, received on the island of Patmos, speaks of an even more distant time, 1,000 years after the return of Jesus. It is a separate prophecy, a future chapter in eternal history. When the 1,000 years are completed, a final chapter in the spiritual history of humanity will unfold. Satan will be released from his prison and will deceive the nations, Gog and Magog, gathering them for a battle of epic proportions. But this is not Armageddon, it is a future battle after the millennial reign of Christ. The Bible tells us that, after the Great Tribulation, Jesus will return, defeat the Antichrist and the false prophet, and imprison Satan. For 1,000 years, the kingdom of God will flourish on earth. But after this period of peace, the freedom granted to Satan will mark the beginning of a last attempt to subvert the divine order. The nations, called Gog and Magog, will gather and surround the holy city, the New Jerusalem. In a final attack, fire will fall from heaven, and God will defeat his enemies, casting Satan into the lake of fire. Then all will be judged according to their deeds. Confusion arises among many Christians about the nature of this last battle. Unlike Armageddon, which occurs before the millennium and is the final confrontation between the forces of God and the Antichrist, the battle of Gog and Magog happens afterward, marking the definitive end of evil. In light of recent attacks and possible connections to Ezekiel's prophecies, it is crucial to remember that, in addition to observing the signs of the times, we must remain steadfast in faith and the gospel. It is not a time for fear, but to keep hope alive, for Christ is alive and God is in control. Therefore, brethren, it is not enough to just observe world events and look for signs of the end times. It is essential to look within and live according to God's word. This will strengthen us and keep us firm on the Lord's path. While we witness rumors of wars and signs of the times, the most important thing is how we live our day-to-day with God and how we help others find eternal salvation. Our role is to be a light in the darkness, promoting peace and hope. In an unprecedented escalation, Iran launched an aerial offensive against Israel, employing a barrage of drones and cruise missiles. This attack, according to reports, is retaliation for the incident on April 1st, where the Iranian consulate in Damascus was hit, resulting in the death of members of the Revolutionary Guard, including 2 generals. While Israeli defense systems are activated, there are reports that the United States is providing support in intercepting these drones. There is still no confirmation of ballistic missiles launched, but the possibility remains a latent concern. The drones require approximately 89 hours to cover the 1,600 kilometers from Iran to Israel, while cruise missiles can make the journey in a matter of hours. If ballistic missiles were used, they could reach Israel in just 12 minutes. Israeli media speculate that the first attacks could arrive within a few hours. There are also conflicting reports from Iran, suggesting that the targets would not be Israeli cities but strategic locations, potentially military bases in the south or north of Israel. In this tense scenario, the cooperation between the armed forces of Israel and the United States stands out. Eric Kurilla, Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. forces in the Middle East, has met with Israeli generals, reinforcing the strategic alliance between the two nations, a partnership emphasized by Joe Biden on several occasions. The situation in the Middle East is undoubtedly complex, and the tensions between Israel and Iran have deep historical roots. The recent escalation of hostilities, with Iran launching drones and missiles in response to an alleged Israeli attack on its consulate in Damascus, raises the risk of a broader conflict. The statement from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, claiming that the attack was a direct response to the consulate attack, suggests a significant shift in Iranian posture. Traditionally, Iran has attributed to Israel the responsibility for various actions without a direct response, but this incident marks a new phase of open retaliation. The emergency meeting of U.S. President Joe Biden with senior security officials indicates the seriousness with which the United States is treating the situation. Biden's expressed commitment to Israel's security reflects the strategic alliance between the two countries and suggests that the U.S. may play an active role in resolving the conflict. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his security cabinet are assessing the situation and considering a proportional response. Israel's decision to respond or not will depend on the assessment of the damage caused by the attacks and the effectiveness of the interceptions. This situation is a reminder of the fragility of peace in the region and the importance of ongoing diplomacy and dialogue. The international community, including the United States, may play a crucial role in mediating between the parties to prevent further escalation. The situation in the Middle East is indeed extremely delicate, and Iran's recent actions, launching drones and missiles, represent a significant escalation in tensions with Israel. The decision not to attack civilian areas but rather military targets can be interpreted as an attempt to gauge Israel's response capacity without provoking an escalation to full conflict. The effectiveness of Israel's air defense system, known as the Iron Dome, has been notable in the past, intercepting a large percentage of hostile projectiles. Iran may be testing the limits of this system, looking for vulnerabilities or simply trying to overwhelm it. This could provide Iran with valuable information about the efficiency of Israeli defenses in a real conflict scenario. Moreover, the coordination between Israel and the United States, and the presence of high-ranking U.S. officials in Israel, suggest that any response to these attacks will be carefully considered and possibly coordinated with U.S. support. The international community, in turn, will be closely watching to see how the situation unfolds and what the implications will be for regional security and global stability. The next hours and days will be crucial in determining whether the situation will calm down or evolve into a more serious confrontation. It is essential that all efforts be made to avoid escalation and seek a peaceful resolution to the conflict. The Middle East situation is undoubtedly one of the most complex and volatile on the current international stage. Israel's decision to strike purely military targets, rather than civilian areas, can be seen as an attempt to mitigate escalation into a broader conflict, maintaining a focus on defense and strategic response. The United States' involvement, as indicated by President Biden's statements, reflects a continued commitment to Israel's security. However, the complexity of the situation for Washington is compounded by the proximity of the U.S. elections, which may influence political and military decisions. The possibility of a regional war is a legitimate concern, given the interconnected nature of conflicts in the Middle East and the presence of various state and non-state actors with divergent interests. The difference between attacking military and civilian targets is significant, as the former tends to be seen as a more legitimate act of war, while the latter could provoke broader international condemnation and potentially trigger a more aggressive response. The regionalization of the conflict and the role of the United States are, therefore, critical points that may determine the course of future events. The international community, including the United States, will have to balance support for Israel with the need to avoid further escalation and work towards a ceasefire and the provision of humanitarian aid to affected populations. The situation is dynamic and continues to develop, and the next few hours will be crucial to understanding the implications of the actions taken by those involved and the responses of the international community. The current situation between Israel and Iran is indeed concerning and reflects the growing tensions in the region. The fact that Israel's war cabinet is meeting indicates the seriousness with which Israel is treating the threat. Iran's actions, launching drones and possibly cruise missiles against Israeli targets, are a significant escalation that could lead to a military response from Israel. The United States' commitment to Israel's security has been reaffirmed by President Joe Biden, and the possibility of U.S. anti-aircraft systems assisting in Israel's defense demonstrates the close cooperation between the two countries. The situation is dynamic, and the coming hours will be critical to understanding the implications of the actions taken and the responses of the international community. It is important that all parties involved seek diplomatic channels to de-escalate the situation and avoid a broader conflict that could have global implications. Peace and stability in the region are of worldwide interest, and efforts should be made to achieve a peaceful resolution. The described situation is complex and reflects the growing tensions in the region. Israel's defense system, including the Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow missiles, are layers of defense designed to intercept various types of threats, from projectiles to ballistic missiles. The effectiveness of these systems in a real attack scenario is being put to the test, and the next few hours will be critical to assess the situation. As for your invitation to spiritual reflection, it is important that each person finds peace and purpose according to their own beliefs and convictions. I deeply respect the diversity of thoughts and spiritual practices and encourage everyone to seek what brings meaning and direction to their lives. If you have more questions or need additional information about the current situation or other topics, I am here to help. May everyone find clarity and peace in times of uncertainty. Until next time.